This is crazy. I'm talking crazy, 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 crazy. Stop everything. Pay attention. If you're driving, pull over. Just kidding. You don't have to pull over. You can keep driving. But you just prepare yourself for what is happening right now in France. So let me give you guys the background. Emmanuel Macron is the president of France. He is married to Brigitte Macron, okay? Their love story has always been extremely weird and extremely creepy. She is 70 years old, allegedly, and he is just 46 years old. So already right there, you have a 24-year age gap between them. And at the very least, just looking into their love story, you're looking at what might be, because they change the age throughout the years, a story of pedophilia. I'll tell you what their official narrative has been. The official narrative is that when Emmanuel was just 15 years old, he was a drama student at a school, and his teacher was Brigitte. And while he was very young, they somehow managed to fall in love. That would have made Brigitte way too old to be falling in love with a 15 or 16 or 14-year-old, depending on which article you're reading. But yes, apparently she was just so moved from his depth, this little boy's depth and the poetry and the way that he would write, that they fell in love, so much so that the now First Lady left her then husband, despite the fact that they had 3 kids. Okay, so that's the background story. Nobody cares. Doesn't matter. It happened so long ago. Now she's the First Lady. We should celebrate her. No, some major update now happening. Major update. So let me tell you about how I happened upon this story. There was just an article that was published in the Daily Mail. Here is the headline. The proof France's First Lady wasn't born a man. What? I was going, what? So I, of course, instantly read it, because what a bizarre thing that you're even needing to present proof that Brigitte Macron was not born a man. And embedded within the article, they showed 2 photos that I'm going to show you right now. This is the first photo. This is allegedly Brigitte Macron when she was a little girl sitting on her mom's lap. But when I saw this photo, the first thing I noticed was that the person on the far left, the boy, that actually looks like Brigitte Macron. I'm taking you guys through my thought process. I saw this photo. I was like, it actually looks like she might actually be the guy. Maybe she's a dead ringer for her brother, but I don't see any resemblance there with the little girl. They showed the second photo, debunking another young photo, allegedly, of Brigitte Macron. But I thought when I looked at this photo that this looks way too new to be a photo of a 70-year-old when they were a child. Now, again, these are my thought processes. When I then read the article, there was no debunking whatsoever. They just were calling people that were saying otherwise far right, all the typical buzzwords, far right, conspiracy theorists, racist, sexist, it's homophobic, it's anti-Semitism. Just the thing that we are all now able to immediately look through. These names don't mean anything anymore. And that just makes me want to look further into the alleged theory. And I did, and holy smokes. So the quote unquote conspiracy theory is actually a 3-year thorough investigation that was conducted by journalists that were working with genealogists. It was published in 6 issues in Faits et Documents. I'm sorry, my French is not that good, but they published 6 issues unpacking what they had discovered after a 3-year investigation. And here is what they are saying, right? So again, I'm going to say allegedly, but this is what they have published. Their theory is that the First Lady, Brigitte Macron, was actually born Jean-Michel. So Brigitte is actually John Michael. John Michael lived as a man for 30 years, fathered 5 children, okay, and then transitioned at the age of 30 to become Brigitte. Okay, now I'm just going to show you this before and after photo, just right here. They actually used, as a part of their investigation, Chinese software. And this is a side-by-side. It is such a dead ringer. It's crazy to me that you would not say that these 2 individuals look alike. This is potentially the same individual age. So on the left, what I'm showing you is John Michael. On the right is a photo of the First Lady, okay? Now, I will tell you why this has legs and why I'm going to encourage you to read the very long document that I read, which we will include in the link in bio. The first obvious reason that I am very much believing what they have published is because the First Lady is simply unable to produce any photos of herself throughout the first 30 years of her life. Guys, how easy to debunk this? If you say, Candace, no, actually, you lived as a man for 30 years. I lived for 30 years. I'm going to show you every photo of every year that I've lived. Here's me in college, right? Here's me while I was pregnant with my children. Here's me and my husband on our wedding day. There would be so many photos that Brigitte should have at her disposal if this is false. But they won't produce any. Nope, they're just calling everybody wrong and backwards and transphobic. Just produce the photos. Instead, the only photos they have produced that are circulating in the media are the photos that I just showed you. And as I said, the first photo, she looks more like the John Michael, who she claims is actually her brother, who she won't just present to the public. If that is in fact your brother, please just go on a walk with him so we can capture it and say, no, she just happens to look like her brother. Here's John Michael. No, John Michael has disappeared. The genealogists just can't find a single trace of John Michael since Brigitte came into the public space at the age of 30. So John Michael existed for 30 years, according to the genealogist, okay? And then John Michael stops existing and Brigitte exists. But Brigitte doesn't exist for the first 30 years, okay? The second photo, the one that I said to you looked a little too recent for an alleged 70-year-old, well, yeah, they were able to debunk that. That's actually a photo of her daughter, her daughter Trefane. You can see now side by side. Of course, that is her daughter. It's a dead ringer for her daughter. So why would you colorize a photo and make it black and white and try to pass it as yourself when it is in fact your daughter? Now, I'm sure somebody will say, well, didn't come directly from the First Lady. It is very obvious that they are trying to dissuade the narrative by producing these two photos, which are easily debunked. Here's a second reason that I would say major red flags. Rather than just producing what should be ample evidence of your existence for the first 30 years of your life, they're suing. Yes, the First Lady actually sued two of the journalists that were involved in producing the story. Brigitte Macron, here's a headline from the Telegraph, Brigitte Macron sues women who claimed that she is transgendered. Well, something to note is what exactly Brigitte is suing for. She's suing them for violation of privacy and fundamental personal rights, plus illicit use of her image. But what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Like, why don't you say you completely lied and I can prove it and I'm going to ruin your entire lives, which you would just have to show, again, pictures of your first 30 years of life. But no, this is really just a tactic to pretend as if these journalists didn't produce concrete proof to substantiate their claims. Now, the two journalists being sued, by the way, are Amandine Roy and Natasha Ray, and they were eventually punished with symbolic fines for, I guess, invading the privacy of the First Lady. It's going to get even crazier, though, because journalists that worked on this case were also threatened. They sent the police to threaten them while they were conducting research. Natasha Ray, the woman that was punished with a symbolic fine, as she was conducting research, she reached out to somebody to ask some questions about the First Lady's upbringing, the first 30 years of the First Lady's life. And then what happened as she was examining these inconsistencies in the story was the police burst into her home on July 13th, 2021. They then took her into custody without being summoned on the pretext of a complaint that was filed by one of the individuals that she had reached out to, Catherine Audoy. She was then released after 5 hours of tough interrogation with a lesson. And you shouldn't be doing this. They tried to humiliate her. They tried to threaten her. And of course, this only made the public even more interested in the story. She was also asked to produce a list of journalists with whom she had been in contact with. The police also seized her phone. That is not normal. None of this should be happening in a story that, again, would be so easy to debunk. They similarly arrested a man named Eric Verhey, another journalist working on the story, similarly had no charges. They just wanted to question him. I don't know, guys. You tell me, what are you thinking? If you're alleging that somebody was a man for the first 30 years of their life, why go through these efforts when you could just show photos? But of course, obviously, to tell a lie this big, you'd have to have a very good memory. This is actually something that Judge Judy used to say. I used to love watching Judge Judy when I was young with my grandma. And she used to say, if you don't lie, you don't have to have a good memory. But if you lie, you got to have a very good memory. And what keeps happening throughout the years of her being the first lady, so since 2017, every time the first lady tells a story about herself in her childhood, the math doesn't quite math, right? For example, she recalled living alone in the United States during Neil Armstrong's moon landing in 1969. The only problem is that she would have been just 16 years old. What? 16-year-old living alone in the United States? But if the theory is true, that she's actually Jean-Michel, who is 8 years older, which would make the First Lady 78 years old today, then that story would make perfect sense. Because, of course, you could live alone when you are 24 years old in the United States. Again, there are multiple examples of the First Lady just being too young in terms of the past stories that she keeps telling. Then there is the remarkably strange case of Brigitte's alleged ex-husband. So just to remind you, jog your memory, the story goes, she was married, right? And at the age of 40 years old, she fell in love, so much so that she left her husband because she just loved this 16-year-old or 15-year-old or 14-year-old drama student so much. She left her husband and her 3 kids to be with him, okay? So it should be pretty easy to find her ex-husband that she had 3 kids with. But it turns out that they can't find that man. Yeah, back when Emmanuel Macron was elected president, journalists all over the world, international journalists, were obviously prying into his background and her background, and they just could not find this man. Allegedly, his name is André Louis Auxier, and internationally, they just couldn't locate him. Allegedly, he is a banker, or was a banker, because now they say he died, just suddenly died. But he was allegedly a banker, so it's very weird that there wouldn't be a trail for journalists to find him. In 2017, during the presidential election, they tried to interview him, and it was all of their attempts in vain. In fact, in an article that was published in French magazine, Gala magazine, they titled the article, "As if he had never existed." So that is in the year that he became president. They were just like, this other guy doesn't really seem to exist. It also seems to be the case that every time the press is trying to assist the narrative that he did exist, they keep accidentally showing photos of other men. For example, in 2018, France 3 TV produced a movie entitled Brigitte Macron, un roman français. And they showed this photo very quickly, featuring Brigitte and her first husband, André Louis Auxier. But it turns out that upon inspection, that actually isn't him. It's actually an old faculty photo because it has been confirmed that Brigitte was a teacher. Obviously, that's how she fell in love with the young student Emmanuel. And here is the full photo of the faculty. Oopsies, we got it wrong again. Guys, when I tell you that there is so much proof to this claim, I'm not a person that just pushes out these narratives, right? I'm not a person that's like, come with me and we're going to examine QAnon or Pizzagate. I am telling you that this has legs. And you know it has legs because the press is doing their usual bit of trying to dismiss it as a far-right conspiracy theory that is being pushed by people who are backwards and racist and homophobes and transphobes. No, you're not going to do that. You're not going to gaslight us anymore. It is very simple to debunk this. It is so simple to debunk this. There should be so much evidence. In fact, if this was me and someone lied about the first 30 years of my life, I would do a press conference. I would have my brother there. I'd be like, here's my brother, John Michael. Yes, we do look alike, okay? But you guys are crazy. And then I would have college friends there. I have tons of photos of me growing up, my entire family. And then I would say it is harmful to produce conspiracy theories. Now that we have debunked this, let's talk about the harm of conspiracy theories. But they're not doing any of that. Instead, they're just scrambling. Why is this story really important? Why am I asking you to share it? Well, because, like I said, we should have known about this. It's been going on since 2017, but also because what they are saying is that the reason the press is covering this, right, the state media is covering this, is because what's really happening here is 2 individuals were selected to be the leaders of a nation. They were selected on the principle of blackmail is what they are saying. They are saying that they selected these two individuals because they can control them, because they created the wife, right? Because they know the history here. And they can basically say, here is what you're going to do, Emmanuel, Macron, and Brigitte. You are going to pass through these policies. And there's nothing that you can do to stop whatever it is that we want to accomplish because we control you. Again, we made you. So again, all across the nation in France, they're even having protests. They're wearing wigs that resemble the wig that Brigitte wears and demanding the truth about this situation. And if this is proven to be fact, and again, I'm going to link this, you should read it. It's like 16 chapters. It took me 2 days to read through all of it, and my jaw was on the floor. But if it is proven true, then what we are unpacking here is exactly what we are unpacking in America, that blackmail is what rules the world. And that's all I have to say about that. If you're